Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. So today is going to be a bit of a different show, and I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes before people sign in. But if you're watching this on the replay, today's live stream is going to be purely a Q&A session. So you guys feel free to ask me anything you'd like. And again, if you're watching this on the replay and you missed the live show, just leave your questions in the comments section and I'll reply to them when I get a chance. Hey, Mark, good afternoon. How's your day going? I know you said you went to work earlier this morning, but I'm not sure. Are you back at home now or are you still at work? Tony, hey, good to see you. Mike, good to see you as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So, yeah, hey, Chris. My goodness, some of you belong to my Patreon group, which I am ever thankful for. Thank you so much for your support. And I know that I spoke to a few of you one-on-one virtually through Zoom this past week. So it feels lovely. First of all, getting to talk with you guys face to face. I know that obviously we can't be in the same room together having these conversations, but it makes things so much more impactful when we do those calls, those face-to-face calls on Zoom. And it's just wonderful. We've developed such wonderful friendships. And thank you guys so much for taking the time to meet with me. And yeah, the conversations we've been having have just been lovely. So thank you. Mark's back at home now. Good. Hey, Jim, how are you? Westbrook, Connecticut from the Kevin SOG. Hello. Okay, so this is a Q&A. So you guys feel free to ask me any questions you have. It doesn't even need to pertain specifically to classic film. It could be anything you're curious about. Hey, Alex. Hey, Ross. So Tony has asked the first question. Is there a film that you watched, liked, but was such a hard watch, say because of subject matter, that you've never wanted to watch again? Mine would be Nil by Mouth. Okay. Ooh, that's a good question. I know there is one, but what the hell is the title? I'm getting such brain freeze on the first question, maybe because I blocked it from my mind. Oh, okay, I'll tell you, and this may be controversial. Actually, I know it's going to be controversial, and some of you guys may just log out and stop watching. But there is one film, or I should say it's a series of films, that is extremely popular, that has just celebrated its anniversary, which is The Godfather. Now, I am Italian. My whole family is of Italian background. So growing up, The Godfather has always been almost like our Bible in terms of what film we feel not best represents us, but does a good job of representing the Italian way of life and family. So I have never been able to watch the first Godfather all the way through. And because of that, I've never actually seen parts 2 and 3 either. And I'll tell you why. It's not because I wasn't enjoying the film. There was a scene, and perhaps you guys can tell me the characters' names because I don't even know, because again, I didn't finish watching the film. There was a scene in the first film where a husband was physically abusing his very pregnant wife. And right there, I had to shut it off. I could sit through scenes of physical, verbal, emotional abuse, but I don't know what it was about this film and this particular scene, but it just hit really hard. I couldn't go on. So I stopped the film and I have never revisited it. This was probably, I want to say it was when I was in high school. So it was probably about 20, 25 years ago. So it's been a long time. And there have been times where I've wanted to rewatch The Godfather and then go on to watch the other two, because I know that that series is a lot of people's favorite. And I know that ultimately it is a good film, but at the time, I just couldn't bring myself to continue watching it, so I shut it off. And again, I'm sorry if that offends some of you, because I know that there's such a reverence for The Godfather and part 2 and 3 as well, that, yeah, I'm sorry if that upset anyone, but that it just hit too close to home. And funnily enough, when my parents got married in 75, their wedding song was the Godfather theme. So that just goes to show you how popular those films were in the Italian culture. It's just, I don't know, I think that's wild. Can you imagine going to a wedding now and the couple's wedding song or their first dance is the Godfather theme? Anyway. Oh, goodness gracious. What country do you like to visit the most? Mark, you will be happy to know that that country is Britain. So my favorite place on earth to visit is London, England. When I go there, I feel as if I'm at home. I feel as if it's my second home. There's a sense of peace that comes over me every time I fly there and the plane is about to land at Heathrow. There's just an overwhelming sense of peace and calm and tranquility that physically overcomes me. And it's almost as if I feel my shoulders just sagging down and the weight is lifted, and I'm so happy to be back there. Now, prior to the pandemic, I used to go to the UK at least once every couple of years, because my best friend actually, well, first she lived in the UK, she lived in England, and now she's moved to Scotland to be with the rest of her family. So I used to go back to the UK every couple of years to visit her and my other friends there. So I haven't been back since, oh gosh, I think it was 2018, 2019. I was supposed to go in March of 2020, but then that's when COVID happened. So I had to cancel that trip and I haven't been back since. But I'm hoping to go again soon, because again, London is just my absolute favorite place on earth to visit. Ian, hey Ian. Carlo beats up his wife, but gets his ass well and truly kicked by Sonny. Okay, so I guess you're referring to the scene that I was talking about where the husband is physically abusing his pregnant wife. Okay. Thank you. Home videos. Hi from London. I was just talking about London, and I hope you caught that. It's good to see you again. So Alex asked, what role has your Italian heritage played in your life? Oh, that's a great question. So I think I've never actually been to Italy. I was born in Canada, and my sister and I are the first members of our family that were born here. So my parents, my aunts and uncles were all born in Italy, and they came over to Canada, I think in the 50s and 60s. So though I've never actually been to Italy, I will say that the way I was raised was very traditional in the Italian sense. So, for example, family has always been the most important thing to us. And it's still true to this day. To me, family is what's most important in life. Italians will find any reason on earth to congregate together and celebrate, whether that is a religious holiday or someone's birthday, or just, I don't know, it could be just a random Friday. Hey, let's all get together and eat. So yeah, family and celebration and food especially has always been very, very important to us. And I would say that because I was brought up in such a traditional way of life and atmosphere, I would say that I still hold those values to this day. So I'm going to be 40 this year, and still There's such an overwhelming love in me for each member of my family. We are so close. We are in an incredibly close family. We're not a big family, but we love each other so much. And there's been little squabbles here and there, but we are incredibly close to each other. And that has stayed true throughout my entire life. And I am eternally grateful for that, because I know that not all families experience that sense of love and companionship and respect. So yeah, I had a very traditional upbringing, and that has stayed with me my entire life. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Thank you guys so much for being so active in the chat. Let's see. Kevin has a question. What classic TV shows do you like? Oh, goodness me. I would say that I absolutely love Abbott and Costello, The Three Stooges, The Little Rascals. I love, who doesn't love I Love Lucy? Bewitched was a favorite, The Addams Family, The Munsters. Oh goodness! And if we're talking about later or newer shows, Three's Company was a huge one for me. That and WKRP in Cincinnati. I grew up watching these shows. I know that they weren't new at the time in the 80s when I was a kid, but there were always reruns on constantly during the day, on the weekend, in the early evenings. These shows were always on cable TV. I don't know that they're on so much nowadays. I think broadcasting has changed somewhat. I don't even think I Love Lucy is shown anymore on cable television. Leave It to Beaver was another big one that I really enjoyed watching when I was a kid. So yeah, those are just some of my favorite classic TV shows that I really enjoyed and I still enjoy. Michael says, I know you're a huge Bela Lugosi and Dracula fan. Yes. But what are your thoughts on Christopher Lee and his Hammer films, or Hammer films in general? Okay, great question. Yes. Since I was 6 years old, I have been in love with Bela Lugosi. I think he was the first male celebrity that I ever formed a real attachment to. Like, I just absolutely loved him. He was probably my first crush, which is very unusual. I don't know that very many people would say that. But anyway, I did not know what Hammer was until I want to say around maybe between the ages of 11 and 13. I can't pinpoint the exact age I was when I first saw a Hammer film, but it was around that age, 11 to 13. My mom knew how much I loved Dracula and anything having to do with vampires. So one day she had gone out shopping and she came back with a VHS copy of Horror of Dracula. Now in the UK, that film is known simply as Dracula, and it's the one starring Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing by Hammer. And I think that was released in 1958. So she came home with this VHS because she said, oh, I saw that it said Dracula, or it has Dracula in the film. So I figured you would want to see it and that you would probably like it. Now, looking at this tape, it had Christopher Lee on the cover as the Count. And I'm looking at this thing going, that's not Bela Lugosi. What kind of Dracula is this? So I watched it that day, mesmerized, completely mesmerized. So I think right there is, first of all, I fell in love with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee as a tag team. They are incredible together. It doesn't matter what film they did together. When the two of them are on screen, oh God, it's like A+ magic. So not only did I fall in love with them, but I fell in love with Hammer, as I had never heard of that studio before. Now it's a studio. Obviously, it was based in England. And at that point in my classic film obsession, I don't think I had ever watched a British classic film. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be remembering incorrectly, but I don't think I had experienced any classic film that was not produced in Hollywood at that time. Maybe I think Nosferatu was the only one I had seen that was not a Hollywood or a production that had come out of the US. So Horror of Dracula was my first British classic film. It was the first time I had heard of Hammer. And since that day, obsessed with Hammer. I collected all the books having to do with Hammer, all the films I could watch. Not all of them were readily available, especially at that time. This was in the 90s. So you couldn't easily find Hammer films on VHS or DVD in North America at that point. Or if you could, not in my area. So yeah, right now I love Hammer. I love, not all the Hammer films are camp and low budget. There are some that are maybe higher or have a bigger budget than others do. But I know that when I sit down to watch a Hammer film now, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fast paced. It's going to be hugely enjoyable. And I know that the makeup and the special effects are going to be stellar. So yeah, I really look forward to exploring more and more Hammer films. And I know, speaking of Hammer, Indicator, which is a UK-based boutique Blu-ray label, is currently having their sale. So I believe the sale lasts until April 1st, which is Friday of this week. So if you guys are into Hammer, check out the Indicator sale, because they have a lot of Hammer box sets. I know most of them are out of print now because the majority of them have sold out, but they do a lot of standard edition Blu-rays as well of Hammer films. So thank you for your great question. Home Video says, since you mentioned London, sorry guys, again, allergies. Do you have a favorite place here? Each time I go to London, I stay in the exact same area, which I don't know if I should be telling you guys this, because the next time I go to London and I talk about it, all you guys are going to show up in this area. No, I'm just kidding. So I always stay in Bayswater, which is in West London. To me, Bayswater, it feels like home. I feel like from there, from Bayswater Tube and the Queensway Tube Station, which are just a few steps away from each other, literally, I feel like from those two tube stations, you could get anywhere in London so easily. And you can also walk. I mean, there are days when I've gone to London where I'm based in West London, in Bayswater, and I just walk for hours and hours and explore, and then I'll walk all the way back. And that's when you find real treasures, I find, is when you're walking just aimlessly and you see little shops that you've never heard of before, or you come across a museum that you've never seen or heard of before. And it's wonderful. So yeah, Bayswater, Queensway is where I stay in West London. Mark says, apart from Singing in the Rain, what films do you like to rewatch the most? Ooh, it depends what kind of mood I'm in. Singing in the Rain is definitely one of them. The Wizard of Oz is another big one. Four Weddings and a Funeral is one. I know it's not a typically traditionally billed as a classic film, but Four Weddings and a Funeral is a good comfort watch for me. It Happened One Night. The Thin Man, holy crap. I'm surprised I didn't say that one sooner. The Thin Man it came out in 1934, right before the enforcement of the Hollywood Production Code. The Thin Man is, I would say, my number 3 favorite film of all time. I'm not going to say, if you haven't seen The Thin Man, go into it blind. I don't want to say anything else about it. Just go into it blind. It will knock your socks off. It is an amazing film. Mark, I know you're writing this down and you're making a note of it. So The Thin Man is one. And curiously enough, I would say Lawrence of Arabia too. I know that film is epically long, but whenever it's on TCM here in North America, or, I mean, I own it digitally, so I can play it whenever I want, but I find that film is a great rewatch, because each time I rewatch it, I discover something new about it that I didn't really notice before. So Lawrence of Arabia is a good one too. And just, I mean, sometimes I'll watch that film just for the soundtrack alone. That soundtrack is majestic, isn't it? It's an amazing soundtrack. Peter Cushing is one of my favorite actors. Yeah, it doesn't matter what film he's in, he's always doing his best work. I completely agree with that. He is always at the top of his game. He never gave a lackluster performance. And the thing with Peter Cushing is he always seemed like he was having fun. Doesn't matter what kind of film it was, if it was horror or drama or suspense, he just always seemed like he was having the time of his life making that film. And not all actors and actresses can convey that easily on screen, but he does. There's always a sense of joy that I find emanating off of him in his performances. He was wonderful. And actually his memoirs were quite funny. I don't know if you guys have ever read any of Peter Cushing's memoirs, but they're well worth reading. And he had a delightful writing style. And the way he talks about his wife, oh my goodness, it just, if I were to ever get married, I would want my husband or my partner to talk about me the way that Peter Cushing spoke about his wife. Just what a wonderful man he was. What are some of your favorite film soundtracks? Ooh, Trainspotting immediately comes to mind. Trainspotting. When did that film come out, guys? What was it? 94, 95? I think it was 94. Anyway, Trainspotting. The Matrix had a wicked soundtrack. In terms of classic film, I would say Singing in the Rain, Wizard of Oz, West Side Story, the original one. And I just watched Dune, the new one from when did Dune come out? Last year, 2021? I just watched that one a few nights ago, and my God, guys, that soundtrack is incredible. I gotta find that on vinyl if it's available, but the Dune soundtrack is magnificent. Speaking of more modern films, I really love the soundtrack to Call Me by Your Name. I think that soundtrack did a fantastic job of capturing the mood and the time period of that film. That film broke my heart, but yeah, that soundtrack is amazing. And also Titanic, James Horner. That film, I remember having that soundtrack on CD in the late 90s when Titanic came out. And I would always skip over the Celine Dion song. I love Celine Dion. I mean, she's a Canadian, so God love her. But I don't like that song. My Heart Will Go On. But the reason why I played that soundtrack over and over and over again was because it was a lot like Dune, where it perfectly captured the style, the mood, and the atmosphere of the film and the events happening in the film. So the Titanic soundtrack, guys, I still remember track number 7, Hard to Starboard. If you just play that track and you put it on full blast, full volume, it, like, honest to God, it hits you. It's that particular tune is from when the ship hits the iceberg. So there's a lot of paranoia and suspense and thrill and just dread that bleeds off the soundtrack. And it, oh God, what a piece of work James Horner did. Yeah. So those are some of my favorites that come to mind just off the top of my head. Salu, you like vampires movies. So did you see Fright Night from Tom Holland? Now, okay, again, modern or modern-ish horror is a big blind spot for me. I know are there 2 versions of Fright Night? So the original one and then the one that was remade recently. I saw the remake and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't a favorite. I wasn't wild about it, but I did enjoy watching that one. A few of my friends have said you should really go back and watch the original because that one is a lot better. So I will do that one day. But yes, I have seen Fright Night, but the remake. What is your go-to junk food or comfort food? Okay, so Alex, I growing up, I never had any food allergies or food or dietary restrictions. Never. I ate anything and everything. But as I got older, that's when I started developing a lot of food intolerances. So there are a lot of things now that I cannot eat, and junk food is one of them. So I haven't touched junk food or snack food in, I want to say, like close to 20 years, because I just, my stomach can't handle it. So I would say that my favorite comfort food that I am still able to eat is just a bowl of cereal. And I don't put milk in it. I am lactose intolerant, so I am severely allergic to dairy, but I never was growing up. I could drink milk and have cheese. I mean, I'm Italian. we ate cheese every day, but now I can't do it because I am severely allergic to anything dairy. So even growing up as a kid, though, I never liked to put milk in my cereal because I didn't like my cereal to get all mushy. So I've always eaten cereal in the bowl dry. And to this day, that is my favorite comfort food. And it, again, I can't have junk food. So it can't be an overly sugary cereal. It has to be something plain, like just plain Cheerios and granola. That's my favorite comfort food. I know it's boring, but I can't have much of anything else. Ian says, have you seen the Hammer films, The Reptile and Plague of the Zombies, two of their very best horror films? I have not. I've heard of Plague of the Zombies. I have not heard of The Reptile. So I will make note of both of those and see if they're available for me to stream or maybe pick up through Indicator. Thank you. As a Canadian, are you a fan of Guy Maddin's films? I figured you would be since he is influenced by silent films. I saw some of his films a while ago and really enjoyed them. Oh God, I feel silly now. Let me, hang on. I'm going to Google Guy Maddin. So I see he's a Canadian screenwriter. Let me see what he's worked on. And I'll tell you if I've seen any of them. No, it doesn't look as if I've seen any of his films, but it does seem as if a few of his films are currently on the Criterion channel, which I have. So I will look into those. But oh goodness, what kind of a Canadian am I that I don't know who Guy Maddin is? Oh, but you know what? This is what's wonderful about doing these live shows, is that not only are you guys getting information from me, but I am getting so much information from you. So thank you. Thank you so much for giving me your recommendations and for making me learn all about these new things. Again, none of us are experts. I am certainly not an expert on classic film. Yes, I have a very real passion for classic film, but that does not make me an expert. There's still so much that I haven't seen and that I don't know about old movies yet. So thank you. I will make note of that. Due to your Italian heritage, what are your top 5 Italian-made films? Oh, you're putting me on the spot now. Okay, I will tell you, Life is Beautiful is probably the Italian film that has had the biggest impact on me. So that came out, I believe it came out right around the same time Titanic did. What was that, 96, 97? I remember watching that film, Life is Beautiful, with my dad's side of the family. So my grandparents, obviously my parents were there with my sister, my aunts and uncles, and my cousins. And because I am a huge history buff, and that film takes place during World War II, during the Holocaust, I was immediately engrossed in that film. And to this day, when I see it repeat on television, or if it's available to stream anywhere online and I happen to catch it, it not only does it immediately bring me back to when it was first released, it holds a special place in my mind and my heart because it's such a heartfelt story. Again, if some of you have not seen Life is Beautiful, I don't want to ruin any of it for you because I feel there's not a twist in it, but there's There's a game that's played in Life is Beautiful that I don't want to expand upon or give anything away about that game. But if you have seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But Life is Beautiful is probably my number one favorite Italian film. And I remember Johnny Stecchino is another good one. That's a comedy. That's another one that brings back great memories of watching that with my family. Off the top of my head, honest to God, those are the only two Italian-made films that really stick out. If I think of more, I'll say them, but those are two of the big ones. When I was still working for Fiat and was in Italy for work, I went to London for a weekend. It was a very fun time. Yeah, London is just, I would love to live there, honestly. Ross, hello. I've been pondering whether Joel McCrea should be considered the first great everyman actor. Thoughts? You make a good point. The thing with Joel McCrea, and with a few other actors of that period, I feel like they could play any role. So Joel McCrea played in Westerns. He played as a romantic lead. He did dramatic films. He did comedies. You're right. He is like an everyman. He could do any role. He's very similar to James Stewart in that respect, where I feel like they could do anything and be good in that part. I think, yeah, probably he was one of the first. Yeah. I'm trying to think of others that are similar, but yeah, James Stewart comes immediately to mind as a great everyman. Maybe, no, Clark Gable, no. I mean, Clark Gable he's one of my favorite actors of the 1930s, but he did have his limitations. I feel like he was so large, even like physically large, tall, and broad, that I don't think he could be an everyman. He had strengths that he stuck to. Gable, I mean, he knew what his strengths were, and his studio MGM knew what his strengths were too, and they stuck with a certain formula for him. But yes, you know what, Ross? That's a great observation, and I do agree with that. Are you still resisting the Kino Lorber sale? Yes, I am. So guys, right now, I know that there's so many sales going on. I don't know if the Warner Archive sale is still on, but they were having their 4 for $49 sale. Kino Lorber is having their sale. Indicator's having theirs. I think even, isn't there a Vinegar Syndrome sale going on right now? Halfway to Boxing Day sale or something? I think around this time of the year, all these boutique Blu-ray labels are having their big sales around this time and then right before the holidays. Criterion just had their flash sale. But yeah, I haven't bought anything from Kino yet. So yes, technically I am still resisting. Chuck says, hi, Vanessa. Hi, Chuck. Who are some of your favorite directors from the Hollywood studio system era? Okay, Michael Curtiz, definitely. That, you know what? Speaking of everyman, he was an everyman director. That guy could direct any film. So him, Victor Fleming. Oh, hang on. Mervyn Leroy. I liked him too. Frank Capra. Goodness gracious. Who doesn't like Frank Capra? John Ford, I will say probably not the greatest human being, but certainly a magnificent director and storyteller. George Cukor, George Stevens, all the horror, it is Todd Browning, James Whale. Who else? Have I said enough? There's more. Gene Kelly. You know what? Gene Kelly is known mostly as an actor, dancer, performer, but he dabbled in directing, and I think that the wonderful thing about Gene Kelly is that he was such a visionary, and I think that's what made him a fantastic choreographer and director, because he envisioned a story or a dance sequence And he stuck to that vision and he perfected it on screen. And he would do take after take after take until it was perfect. And I think, well, me personally, I admire people like that are so gung-ho about their vision that they want to see it perfectly reflected on screen. Yeah. Billy Wilder, Jesus. Vanessa. Yeah. I mean, I think I've said enough, and there's probably so many more that I'm still missing, but those are some of my favorites. Yeah. Love The Thin Man. I watch it every year. I know that a lot of people watch it every holiday season, either Christmas or New Year's. Yeah, I do the same. But I mean, it could be any time of the year, and I will watch The Thin Man. God, my love for that film just never ends. I love it. Nice choice, Bayswater. I stayed there once too. Thanks for your answer. Oh, you're welcome. Oh, I think I've answered that already. Hang on. Let's see. My goodness, guys, the chat is like exploding. Don't worry, I will get to your question. I'm going down one by one. I'll get there. One of my favorite Cushing roles, The Hound of the Baskervilles. You could tell how much fun he was having. Yes, I love that film. And you know what? It is not available in North America on DVD or Blu-ray. I could be wrong, but I had to import mine from the UK. Oh, I can't remember what label it was now. I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't remember what label it was, but I did have to import my copy from the UK. And what a fantastic film. Yes, 100% Eddie. Agree. 1996, I think, Trainspotting. Yeah. Hey, Andrew. Okay, what were some of your favorite childhood TV shows? Again, as a child, I was obsessed with anything having to do with old Hollywood, or if I was flipping channels, and we didn't have very many channels when I was growing up. I think we just had a handful, or maybe like a little less than 10. So anytime I was flipping channels and something black and white would come on, I would stop because I wanted to watch anything and everything that was black and white. So a lot of my favorite childhood TV shows were classic TV shows filmed in black and white. But in terms of modern ones that were like done in the 80s, I would say She-Ra and He-Man. Ninja Turtles was a big one for me. Looney Tunes. Oh my God. To this day, I am obsessed with Looney Tunes. I know that there's a newer version of Looney Tunes that's currently, I don't know if it's still being made, but there were a few seasons there. And my nephews like that version, but I like the original, obviously. So Looney Tunes, my goodness. And yeah, the Three Stooges was a big favorite of mine. I liked Family Matters, Step by Step. Like, do you guys remember TGIF? That little block of sitcom TV shows from the 90s. I liked all of those. And Three's Company, again, my goodness, I loved that show. I remember, okay, funny story. I won't go on about this too long, but funny story about Three's Company was I was watching an episode, can't remember which episode it was, but I was watching it in my basement of my childhood home. And I was sitting on the couch that was placed against the wall. So there's the wall, and then the couch was placed right up against it. And I was laughing so hard at something that happened that I was laughing and I went, ah, like I was laughing that hard that my head went back and I dented the wall behind the couch. My head didn't go through the wall, but it dented. So there was like a big dip. So yeah, Three's Company was a big one for me. I had a giant poster of Danny Boyle's Trainspotting. Who didn't? I feel like we all had that poster that took up my whole dorm room wall in college that I got off a local video rental store. Okay, mine wasn't that big. It was like the standard size poster. But yeah, I think we all had that poster. What a wicked movie. I may actually rewatch that one today after like having spoken about it now. Do you have a favorite classic movie studio? That is a tough question to answer because, again, it depends what mood I'm in. Overall, I would say that MGM is probably my favorite studio because of not only the amount of films that studio pumped out during the golden age, but just the caliber of films that it made. So their star roster was unparalleled. I don't care what anyone says. They had the biggest stars of the 20s and 30s. Another maybe close second is probably a mix of Warner Brothers and Paramount. RKO, growing up, RKO was one of my favorite studios because they're the ones that made all but one of the Astaire Rogers musicals. But yeah, if I had to choose one, it would be MGM. Hands down. Yeah. Do you guys have a favorite classic film studio? If you do, put it in the chat and I'll get to it eventually and we can discuss. Mark says, I know this is weird, but it's not really a classic film, but Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I read the book, directed by Tim Burton, is a film that I've watched countless times. I've not seen the film, but I've read the book. And you know what? That book perfectly fits Tim Burton's directorial style. So I'm not at all surprised that he was the film's director. And isn't Eva Green in that film? I freaking love her. I love her. So maybe I should actually watch that film. You must watch Guy Madden. I will. I mean, he's Canadian, so how could I not, right? Guy Madden is actually a cousin of my dad. Wow, small world. And yes, I recommend his work if you're into silent film. Yes, I am into silent film. I think we all know this. So yes, I will check it out. Thank you. He was a director filmmaker before in the 90s to 2000s. Who would win in an argument, Hyacinth Bouquet or Sybil Fawlty? Oh, fuck. Okay. So if you guys don't know, I am a huge Britcom fan. So Hyacinth Bouquet or Bucket is from the show Keeping Up Appearances, and Sybil Fawlty is from Fawlty Towers. Now, if this was a physical fight, I would say Sybil Fawlty would take it. Even though she's smaller than Hyacinth, she's vicious, man. So Sybil would win in a physical fight. But in terms of a verbal argument, I think Hyacinth would do it. Like, have you heard the way she orders Richard around? Richard is Hyacinth's husband. No. If it was verbal, Hyacinth. Physical, Sybil. Definitely. That's an awesome question. Speaking of Peter Cushing, a criminally underseen Hammer film that's fun is Sword of Sherwood Forest. I've heard of it. Cushing plays the sheriff of Nottingham. Again, I've heard of it, but because Hammer was a UK-based studio, we don't have a lot of those films readily available to us here in North America. So there are countless Hammer films that I have not seen. And I think the only way I can access them is probably through a UK label like Indicator. I don't think Eureka does any Hammer stuff. I think it's just Indicator. Maybe Shout Factory maybe does some of them. Not sure. Have you ever seen any Italian neo-realism like The Bicycle Thieves? Recommend if you've not seen them. I haven't. No, again, that's a huge blind spot, but I'm trying to dip my toe into other things that I don't know a lot about this year. So I'm trying to watch stuff that's completely new to me, and I will get to those as well. Question, what are a few movies you would consider essential to a collection? It depends what you're collecting. I would say that if you're collecting, let's just throw it out there, silent film, I would say The Wind is an essential. The Passion of Joan of Arc. Oh God, anything by Harold Lloyd, Chaplin, or Buster Keaton. Sunrise is another essential. And my personal favorite, Flesh and the Devil. The original Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ. And then, I mean, if you're collecting pre-codes, there's another list of essentials. Babyface, Three on a Match, The Thin Man. Oh, goodness gracious. The Big House. Guys, why am I drawing a blank? Like pre-codes is my area of expertise. Anything by the Marx Brothers, anything by Mae West. It depends. It depends what you're collecting. If you're collecting, let's say, MGM musicals or just Hollywood musicals in general, I would say the Astaire Rogers films, yes, for sure. Singing in the Rain, The Bandwagon, Easter Parade, Summer Stock. Yeah, it just, again, it depends on what you're collecting, but those are a few of my essentials. If you want to go into a particular era or particular decade or genre, let me know in the chat and I'll maybe think of some more titles. Can you speak any other languages? I'm fluent in English, obviously. When I was growing up, because I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, I could speak Italian. I'm not going to say I could speak it fluently, but I could speak it very well. As I've grown up, I've lost the ability to speak in Italian. I understand it, but I feel incapable of having a spoken conversation with someone in Italian. So I immediately clam up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to sound like the biggest fool if I start speaking Italian. But I understand it. And also because I'm Canadian and our second official language is French, we were brought up in school having to take French lessons from all the way from grade school to the end of high school. So it was mandatory. You had to learn French. Everyone had to. And then I think once you graduated high school, you could drop it if you wanted to, or you continue on learning French in university or college. So during that time period, grade school and high school, I could speak French almost fluently. Again, like Italian, I could understand French now, especially if I read it. If I have something in French in front of me printed, I can read it and understand it. But in order to actually have a conversation with someone in French, no, that's not happening. But yeah, so fluent in English, and I do understand Italian and French, but I am incapable of holding a conversation with someone in those two languages. What do you think about Night of the Demon? I haven't watched it. Oh my goodness, I should have like a note paper and pen here. Okay, that's another one I got to add to my watch list. My Kino purchases will be arriving Monday. It's a bunch of Buster Keaton and Bob Hope films. Yeah, I remember us having this conversation on Twitter, I think, about the Bob Hope films. So yeah, Kino Lorber, they have released a lot of great Buster Keaton films. They've released his short films in one set that is very good. I recommend that one. And his individual films, it's great. They're great releases by Kino. There may be some of them are bare bones, but they do have some worthy special features on them. So Kino does wonderful Buster Keaton work. And the Bob Hope films, oh my God. Again, from his Kino stuff, I would recommend The Cat and the Canary and The Ghost Breakers. Those are two wonderful comedic horror, or not horror, but comedy suspense films that he did with Paulette Goddard that was actually married to Charlie Chaplin. So yeah, that's wonderful. What are your favorite classic Westerns? Westerns are tricky because I didn't start watching Westerns until I was in I want to say I was in my early 30s. I had to be pushed to watch Westerns because I honestly didn't think I would enjoy them. But the first ones I watched were Stagecoach from 1939, which is a masterpiece, and that's currently available from Criterion. And the other one I watched was The Searchers, which is another masterpiece, if you ask me. Both of those starring John Wayne. Those, I would say, if you've never seen a Western and you're hesitant to dip your toe into that genre because you think, am I going to like this? If you watch those two films first, yes, you will like them. Another great, I think, underrated Western is Shane, starring Alan Ladd. That film, or no, wait, was it Alan Ladd? Am I remembering that wrong? Hang on. Shane Western. 1953. Yeah, Alan Ladd. Okay, I wasn't wrong. That is a superb Western, which again is so underrated. And I don't feel like enough people talk about that one, but it's brilliant. So I would say probably those three: The Searchers, Stagecoach, and Shane are my three favorite Westerns. I'm trying to think if there are any more. No, those are probably my favorite top three Westerns for me. With the Elvis biopic coming up, who else would you like to see get the biopic treatment? I know that there is one that they're currently working on about Audrey Hepburn, and I know that Rooney Mara has been cast in the role of Hepburn, which I think is perfect casting. So I'm interested to see that one. And I know there's also, I think Netflix is producing a Marilyn Monroe biopic. I'd like to see that one too. I know a lot of classic film fans are opposed to biopics because they feel like, well, first of all, which modern actor or actress could properly portray these people, these legends that we love so much? No one could possibly do a good job. But there's one example, Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool, starring Annette Bening as Gloria Graham. That was a fantastic film. It's very, I don't think it's as well known as other biopics, but that one was very well done, and it does a good job of adapting the story from the book, because it was a book first. Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool. The movie did a fantastic job of adapting what was in that book. It was very truthful and loyal to the story, so that was fantastic. For someone who hasn't received the biopic treatment yet, oh, hang on, I'm thinking. I would like to see a really good biopic done of Roscoe Arbuckle, because I think his story is unbelievably tragic. And I think, especially nowadays with the whole Me Too movement and this cancel culture we've got going on, I think Arbuckle's story is incredibly relevant to what's happening right now. And I think people need to see his story done well. I'm going to emphasize that, done well on screen. I would love to see, yeah, Roscoe Arbuckle. I'm glad I took the time to think of an answer for that one, because, yeah, he would be at the top of my list. That guy deserves a very well done film about him, which I don't think he's gotten yet. So, see, like, I get depressed. I get depressed talking about people, especially from the silent film era, who have had tragic ends. If you guys are not aware, or you don't know who Roscoe Arbuckle was, please, after this or even during this, I give you permission to leave this live show and look him up. Google it. Google what happened to him, and it's crushing. Who are some of the artists or bands in your vinyl collection? Okay, well, my dad, when I was a kid, my dad has always been a massive music fan. So I have a lot of his records from the 70s and 80s. And I kept them because me and my dad have very similar taste in music. So if I'm talking about original vinyls from that time period, I have like a lot of The Police. My dad loved Culture Club, Queen, Genesis. Who else do I have? He had some Led Zeppelin stuff, Beatles. So those are all the original vinyls, but the newly pressed vinyls that I collect, a lot of them are a lot of alt rock bands. A lot of them are Britpop bands from the 90s. So Oasis. I know not everyone loves Oasis. Okay, guys, I get it. I get so much hate sometimes for loving Oasis, but I'm trying to collect all the Oasis albums because I love them so much. I have one of my most recent pickups was a anniversary copy of Republica's debut album. I have a lot of Canadian favorites, so bands like Metric, July Talk. I have a lot of British stuff, Florence and the Machine. I love Kylie Minogue. I have Frank Sinatra. It's just my musical taste is very eclectic. I will listen to anything with the exception of like gangster rap and maybe country. I'm not too much into country, but mostly I'll listen to anything. So that means I will collect anything. If I really, really love an album, I will want to have it on record, on vinyl. So yeah, you know what? Maybe I should do a live show one day where we focus on vinyl and I go through my collection. It's not a big collection because as you guys know, I'm a minimalist. I like to keep things small and contained. So yeah, I'm trying to think of who else I have. Guns N' Roses is another favorite band. I have all the Duran Duran albums with the exception of maybe the last two that they released, because Duran Duran is my number one favorite band of all time. Guns N' Roses is number two, and then Oasis is number three. So yeah, it's just a large mix of all genres and artists. Oh, we talked about that. Let's see. TGIF sitcoms. Yeah, I was Perfect Strangers. Yeah, that was one of my favorites. Oh my God, Larry and Velky. Oh God, that show. I think it's available now on DVD, which maybe I should pick up because that would be a wonderful rewatch. Arrow Video. Yes, Hound of the Baskervilles. That's the one that I had to hunt down. Yeah. What is your family's opinion related to your interest, love, and classic film? Well, my dad's side has always really been into old movies, so they understand it. And my Aunt Grace, which is my dad's youngest sister, she's the one who introduced me to old movies, so she gets it. She was the same way. My mom's side doesn't quite understand it. And my sister has never understood my love for old movies. My sister is 5 years older than I am. And I remember as a kid when I would put in these black and white VHS tapes and she would walk by the family room or she would come to sit in the family room with me, she'd be like, why the hell are you watching this stuff? Look at the way they're talking. Look at the way they're dressed. Why is this not in color? My sister is one of those people. She does not get it. She does not get the attraction that I have to old movies. And you know what? And to each their own. I'm not going to, criticize her about that. She's just not into them, and that's okay. So the majority, my dad's side of the family gets it because they're very similar to me in that they really do enjoy these films, but my mom's side, forget it. Let's see. Oh my goodness. It's already been an hour and I'm not even caught up on the chat. Eddie says my favorite studio would probably be Universal because of watching the Universal Monsters and the Abbott and Costello movies. Yeah. Universal is definitely up there. Yeah. Universal Studios for me too. Wow. A lot of you guys are loving Universal. And that's a great answer. If you're collecting pre-code films, you must get King Kong, of course. Yeah, 1933. Come on, King Kong. That's a classic. I was actually just reading in the paper an article about Fay Wray. What was it, like 2 mornings ago? And they were talking about King Kong. Yeah. Indicator put out another underseen and underrated Hammer crime film called Cash on Demand. Yes, that is one of Peter Cushing's best on-screen performances. What a film. Yeah, that's a good one. Great example, Eddie. I'm a big fan of William Holden. Obviously, Sunset Boulevard and Stalag 17 stand out, the latter being one of my all-time favorites. Yes, William Holden, he was great at playing very intense characters. And Sunset Boulevard, I would say that if someone is just starting out watching classic films, I think Sunset Boulevard would be one that I recommend them to watch right at the beginning of their journey of discovering old movies. That's a great place to start, Sunset Boulevard. Oh, now we're talking in French. Blue Alien, hello. Hi. I would love to see a Jimmy Stewart biopic. You know what? So would I, but who would you cast to play James Stewart? I mean, not only would you need someone to look like him, but how would you imitate that voice? How would you get that voice correct? I mean, it's not just an appearance thing. James Stewart had one of those very distinct voices. So that's for an actor cast to play James Stewart, that must be intimidating because how do you get the voice right? But yeah, I would like to see a biopic of him too. When Shane is riding off into the sunset, do you think he's dead or alive? In my heart, I want to believe that he's alive and well and that he's not dying. Again, for those of you who haven't seen it, I don't want to say anymore because I don't want to spoil it. And Shane is such a wonderful film. I like to believe that he's alive. Yes, with Armas. Yes, Ana de Armas. She has been cast as Marilyn in the Netflix biopic, and I think that it's got an adult rating on it, so that should be interesting. So let's see what they do with that. But I think she's a good choice to play Marilyn. I think she'll do it well. Arbuckle is a great choice, yeah, for a biopic, yeah. Virginia Rapé and the St. Francis Hotel, eh? Yeah, exactly. I mean, that story needs to be told. I think both of them, Arbuckle and Rapé, both of them were treated horribly in the press. I mean, she passed away. She died. Arbuckle died a few years later from just, I guess, a broken heart. Neither one of them came out of this alive, and I think that's absolutely tragic. So yeah, that warrants a well done biopic. Are you a fan of the post-punk goth band Bajas, or did you ever listen to their song? Yes, Bela Lugosi's dead. Yeah, I think, yeah, a lot of us have heard that. It's beautiful and was used in Tony Scott's David Bowie vampire film, The Hunger. I've never seen that film, but yes, I am familiar with Bajas. Colin says, is there a non-English speaking country cinema that you have a special affinity towards, like a country whose output you seem to enjoy more than most? Yes. I would say probably German cinema from the 1920s. Nosferatu was the first silent film that I ever watched. That was back when I was a kid. Now, I'm not going to say that I loved it right away. The first time I watched it, I thought it was boring, to be completely honest. It wasn't until years later when I got older that I could sit down and watch Nosferatu again, where I properly appreciated it and fell in love with it. But I think any of the German expressionist films, they hold a special affinity for me. Definitely German silent cinema. Yeah. Putting you on the spot, who is playing Vanessa Butino in the biopic of your life? Can you imagine? I want to say Rooney Mara because I've been told, I don't believe this is true, but I've been told that we appear to be similar, like our facial structure and our coloring. And I can relate to her in that I know that she's very introverted, and so am I. It may not appear that way, especially when I do these live shows, but I am a through and through introvert. And this right here, doing these live shows and doing the Patreon and doing the one-on-one virtual calls with my studio system patrons is very exhausting for me. I'm not going to lie. It takes a lot out of me. And when this live stream ends, I will need to be by myself in a quiet room for the rest of the day because this does suck all the energy from me. So I think Rooney Mara, I've been told she's much the same way. So I think I would like her to play me. But yeah, I can't see that happening. Peter, hi Vanessa, sorry I'm late. No, don't apologize. Who is the lady on your banner? So I think you're referring to my Twitter, my Patreon, and my YouTube banner. No, not my YouTube banner. I think it's just Twitter and Patreon. That is Gloria Stewart. Gloria Stewart. My God, I'm still thinking of Titanic. Gloria Swanson. That is Gloria Swanson. She is one of my favorite film stars. And her autobiography called Swanson on Swanson is my favorite classic film related book that I have ever read. And I just have enormous respect for her. Gloria Swanson was essentially around at the dawn of Hollywood. So to me, she was a Hollywood pioneer. She had seen and done it all from the very beginning up until her death in I believe it was the late 80s. So she had seen everything. She had seen and done everything. And the stories that woman told in her autobiography, I mean, some of them were extremely hard to digest, especially identifying as a woman, being a woman. I cannot believe the things that she was subjected to in the 1920s at the dawn of Hollywood. Yeah, I just have enormous respect for Gloria Swanson, and that is why she is my banner on Twitter and Patreon. Yeah, that's the tough part. I just don't know who could play Stewart. Yeah, again, who would you cast as him? I don't know. Are there any Canadian actors from the classic era? Well, Fay Wray. There's Mary Pickford. There's Marie Dressler. There's Norma Shearer. A lot of people don't know this, but Glenn Ford was also Canadian. He is, if you don't know immediately who Glenn Ford is, he was in Gilda with Rita Hayworth. And he was also married to MGM star Eleanor Powell, who was an incredible dancer. Oh my God. So yeah, there are many Canadians. Louis B. Mayer actually grew up in Canada. He wasn't born in Canada, but he grew up here. So yes, there are many of us that infiltrated Hollywood in the classic era. Duran Duran is performing near where I'm living next month. Was considering going since I'm a fan of their 80s stuff, but wondering are they still good these days? Duran Duran, and I'm not just saying this because they are my favorite band, they have done an incredible job of staying relevant in terms of music production. They're obviously the stuff that they do now, the albums that they come out with now do not compare in scope or popularity of the albums they released in the 80s. I mean, they were the thing in the 80s. They were the band. Now, I mean, it's just their hardcore fans that really listen to them or continue to listen to them and continue buying their music and going to their shows. So it's not the same level of intensity and popularity that they had reached in the 80s. But if you listen to their new stuff, they've adjusted and they have incorporated new sounds and new production, just new design. They have stayed incredibly relevant. And I don't think they are given enough credit for doing so. I think now they're just passed off as an 80s boy band, which no, man, they're much more than that. And yeah, I know that Duran Duran are coming to Toronto in August, but they're coming on a Monday. And I get up for work on weekdays at 5 a.m. So there's no way I'm going to a concert in downtown Toronto on a Monday night, having to get up the next morning at 5 a.m. There's no way. I would love to. They are an incredible live band, but yeah, I'm not gonna see them this time. But if you're able to, I would go. Because during their concerts, they don't just play their new stuff. They play a lot of their old hits as well, and they sound incredible. Honest to God, they sound incredible to this day. Kino just announced the Anime Wong collection for later this year. You know what? There's apparently, speaking of biopics, she's receiving the biopic treatment. I think Gemma Chan is working on, she's one of the producers of the Anime Wong biopic, which I guess is going to come out maybe next year. So I'm excited about that. Anime Wong was incredible, and I don't think enough people have heard of her or know who she is. So I'm excited about that. That's wonderful news. What about a biopic on Thelma Todd? Oh, God. Thelma Todd. Another one. This is another one I get depressed of just thinking about. Thelma Todd, if you don't know who she started off in silent film, and she did a lot of great pre-code films in the early 1930s. She did a lot of shorts at the Hal Roach studio. Her first set of shorts, I think there were something like 16 or 22 shorts that she did with Zazu Pitts. And then once Pitts moved on from Hal Roach Studios, oh my God, Patsy Kelly came in, and she did 26 shorts with Thelma Todd after that. Thelma Todd was a wonderful comedian. She was a wonderful talent, and she died tragically young under very mysterious circumstances. So I think, again, like Arbuckle, if they do receive the biopic treatment, it would have to be done well. If it's done well, I would be there first in line to watch them. Yeah. Yes, Gemma Chan. Oh, is she going to be playing Anime Wong as well? I thought she was just producing it, but geez, yeah, no, I love her. Okay, hang on. Just trying to catch up. Interesting fact about Gloria Swanson. Dirk Benedict credits her with saving his life during his battle with cancer as a young man. She told him to switch to a macrobiotic diet. You know what? There is a lot of that she explains in her autobiography, Swanson on Swanson. She became, I forgot how old she was, but somewhere in her life, she became a real health nut, or I shouldn't say nut, a health advocate, in that she was very careful about her diet. And when she saw her friends or acquaintances or coworkers who were suffering with these like mysterious maladies, and think back to that time period, we didn't know really what most physical ailments were, or even mental ailments. We didn't know what those were and what the diagnoses were until much later on. So Gloria Swanson advocated for extreme healthy diets. So yes, I was aware of that. And she does explain a lot of that in her book. I usually don't like to talk and will keep to myself, but bartending and FOH managing at a restaurant beats me. I feel like I'm exerting way more energy when I have to entertain people. Yeah, I'm the same way. I think that's how most introverts are, where we need our quiet time to recover from things like this. I'm not saying, okay, this is not me saying that I don't enjoy doing this stuff, because I do. I love talking to you guys. I love talking about classic film. And I love having the one-on-one virtual calls with my patrons, because again, I think through those we've developed such wonderful, rewarding, loving friendships. But once this is all done, I need to recover my energy. And in order to do that, I need to be by myself in a room, just maybe reading a book or watching a film. I need to recover. Whereas I think extroverts, they gain more energy through these types of interactions, whereas introverts, it saps our energy. So yeah, I think a lot of us are like that. Pioneers, First Women Filmmakers is on Netflix. Yeah, have you seen it? Yes, yeah, I have seen it, Mark. And speaking of Kino Lorber, if the sale is still on, which I think it is, they have a wonderful box set of this series, The Pioneers, First Women Filmmakers. So if you have not shopped the Kino sale yet, or if you have and you'd like to purchase more, I recommend that box set. It is fantastic. Your thoughts on Basil Rathbone and his brilliant career? Oh, where do I start? Basil Rathbone was so talented. That man I'm not going to say he was an everyman because I don't think he was, but he was so versatile in terms of the roles he was able to play and play well. I love him most as the baddie. I love him as the villain. And I think, oh God, I'm trying to think what's my favorite of his films. Okay, let me hang on because I don't want to say the wrong thing or forget about one of the films he made. Okay. I think he is my favorite Sherlock Holmes out of all the actors who have played that role. So his Sherlock films, Holmes, his Sherlock Holmes films, I could watch any of those and be well and truly entertained. I love those, but I think I love him best opposite Errol Flynn in films like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. I think those two actors had a wonderful chemistry, and them playing opposite each other really makes me happy. I love watching them together on screen. He was wonderful in Son of Frankenstein as well. And The Great Mouse Detective. I know it's a Disney animated film, but isn't that a wonderful film? And like with Vincent Price in it as well. Oh my goodness, that film is so underrated. I think whenever people talk about Disney films, they rarely ever mention The Great Mouse Detective, but that's a great one. And that's a great question, Michael. Thank you. Extroverts are energy vampires. Well, I guess. Okay, so we've been going for over an hour. If you guys have any final questions, put them in the chat, or I'm just going to shut down for the rest of the day and spend my day in quiet and solitude, recovering. I liked Rathbone in Tower of London a lot. Yeah, him and Karloff are great in it. Rathbone is good as Holmes, but personally, I prefer the way Jeremy Brett captured the eccentricities and madness. Yeah, fair. That's a fair statement. Will you be watching the Oscars tonight? Probably not. I'm going to be honest. Growing up, the Oscars were must-see TV for me. There was not one year that I missed watching the Oscars. I think all that changed about maybe 5-6 years ago. I lost interest. And it's not because I don't like modern film. That's not true. Just because I have such a passion for classic film, it does not mean that I don't watch modern films as well. I just don't watch as many as I do classics. So no, I don't think I'll be watching tonight. What I'll probably be doing is watching more pre-codes on Criterion Channel, because they starting at the beginning of this month, March. Why don't I just say starting March 1st? My goodness, Vanessa. Beginning on March 1st, Criterion Channel, for those of us who have it in North America, they have highlighted, I think it's something like 16 or 20 pre-code films owned by Paramount Studios. So I've been making my way slowly down that list, and I've been trying to watch all of them. Some of them I have already seen before, but I want to rewatch them. So that's what I'll probably be doing tonight, to be perfectly honest. I'll probably be watching more pre-code films. Oh, you guys are the best. You're all saying thank you. No, thank you guys. Honestly, thank you for tuning in, for watching, for asking me your questions. This has been wonderful. And you guys, you always come through, eh? You always have the best questions. Nigel Bruce. Yeah. Oh, he's fantastic, Mark. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I'm going to go recover now reading my book. But I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend, and I will see you in another couple weeks. And oh, if you want to tweet me, guys, I'm always on Twitter. So if you want to talk, let's talk on Twitter. And yeah, I'll see you online. Okay. Take care, guys. Thanks again so much.